Well, we might make a start.
Yeah, why not?
Good morning to any of the parents who've been able to tune in at this early time on a Friday morning. We're only doing 7:30 because we thought it might be a bit more convenient with work schedules. But thank you very much for showing an interest. And of course, the topic this morning for our parent forum is why is math important? Why is math important? And I've got the person who genuinely believes in that more than that, possibly anybody else, Mr. Glen Smith, our head of department mathematics. Has had a long and distinguished career in mathematics education. Taught half of Mackay mathematics, I think.
No, not quite. Close.
Yeah, pretty close, pretty close. So thanks, Glenn, for making yourself available this morning, and you will try and cover a few topics that parents would find interesting, and by all means put questions in the chat, and we'll try and answer those as we go along. So let's make a start because we've got a half an hour and.
Oh, half an hour, okay. I've probably gone too far then.
Okay. It's a short, sharp explanation.
Short, sharp. Well, look,
yeah.
I may as well let you know who I am first, and I'm just going to share a couple of bits and pieces for a PowerPoint, and I'll turn it on and off because I'm not real good, I hope, with these things. Sadly, the math science isn't as great with technology as it could be. So I've sort of spent a little bit of time thinking about this one. And hopefully this works. There we go. Oops. So I sort of get inspired by a lot of things about mathematics, and in the end, my value for mathematics actually comes back to this sort of point here, where we need to value mathematics as much as we would value art or poetry, because it's in the same vein. It's not just a practical thing that people use. And to me, that there's much more to it than that, and it's appreciating it for the mathematical sense. So I suppose I'm a bit of a nerd that way.
Yeah. Art and maths come together.
Yeah. Well, in a sense. But I thought you also should probably find out a bit about me. I like finding this photo because I was 19, definitely in my prime, and
there you go.
Yeah, young 19-year-old, and what I worked out and thought of this morning was, okay, they're pretty lucky they put me in the purple house with my old car. But anyway, I grew up in Townsville. My high school was Ignatius Park College, university, but my background educationally is that I got a Bachelor of Science where I majored in mathematics and I minored in physics, and I did a graduate Bachelor of Education. Taught around the state over the years, but mostly in Mackay. My first 4 years were in Mount Isa, a small Catholic school out there. Taught an Anglican school for a year, saw the light, came back to St. Pat's from 1999 up until last year, and obviously this year at CMC, and I've done various jobs at that stage as well. I've also worked for the various versions of the QCAA since 1999 in various jobs. Currently, I am a lead endorser for specialist maths, which actually means I get to work this weekend for 2 days, reviewing basically the first two Year 12 specialist maths assessment items for the current Year 11s in Queensland. So that's me. History-wise, what am I talking about? Why is maths important?
Yeah,
well, actually, I'm out of that order, but that's okay.
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to talk about, of course, was what's covered, so the parents understand, what topics are actually covered.
To be really honest, probably hasn't changed much since the parents were in school.
Well, it probably shouldn't in regard to the basics.
No.
Yeah.
And I've sort of currently it's broken up into 3 groups. It's actually going to be, from next year, it's going to be broken up into 6, but realistically, they just split each of the 3 groups in half. And everything there is what was there when you were in school. It's the same. It really is the same stuff. In Year 7 and 8, we start to actually just get a bit more mathematical. So from when they're up to Year 6, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not as mathy.
Yeah.
So we start to be a bit more mathy at this point. I don't even know if mathy is a word. But so recently the students were introduced to negative numbers. They've been starting to actually put letters into algebra now. They've been doing patterns and doing algebra up until now. They just haven't realised it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so those sort of things. And it's just, they do a little bit of financial math, looking at best value for things. And we start to look at relationships, as it says there, linear and non-linear. So drawing straight lines, things like that. Then there's all the extra little bits, the measurement and geometry, which you hopefully remember. Pythagoras, which I love. More for the stories than anything else. And then chance and data, which to me in the end is just I love how they say chance and data, call it statistics and probability, but yeah, that's what it is. It's, I actually believe that's one of the biggies for kids in school.
Certainly isn't
Yeah.
that change in the senior school in regard to that.
Oh,
issue.
huge, but the actual use of it educationally outside of school is huge.
You
And
can't avoid statistics.
no, and I love watching news reports when they make mistakes with it.
That's right. Yeah, a little bit of literacy in that regard is probably vital, as you say. Yeah.
That's right. So I don't even know how to change things in this thing at the moment.
Yeah, doing pretty well. So.
Am I?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So you
How do
might
I
scroll up a bit further?
Oh, yeah, I was going to try and stop sharing, but that's okay. Oh, no, that's what I can do.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, what's the next question?
Well, I guess you covered the topics, but where are the areas that I guess kids struggle?
Kids struggle. I'll take a look. So you can see me. I'll just stop the share for the moment, and I'll just look at my own PowerPoint for a second because I know it's there. These are my notes. Students. What I've found over the time, and I've taught lots of students, specifically in year 11 and 12 over the years, but what I've discovered this year, students coming in, like they struggle with setting out. Because I think, this is what I think they find difficult. Setting out, they haven't done as much setting out in primary school. Quite regularly, they're just doing answers. And they don't quite value that yet. And that's what I've been myself. We've been working on getting them to used to putting everything down as a setting out. More or less so they can get credit for their work as opposed to just getting credit for an answer, which actually also has a side effect in that I think the kids only value correct answers as well, which is something we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
But not value the bits in between.
That's what I think is important.
Yeah, the answer at the end is not. Yeah. The road to the end is more important sometimes. The other thing that I think is probably is an interesting problem is students and their ability to recall stuff. Yeah. As in terms of their standard numeracy skills, addition, multiplication, facts, all that sort of stuff. Because it takes away from their ability to the actual maths they're learning in class.
Right.
That's the problem I think is there. If they were a little bit strong, if they were a little bit stronger with their tables, they're not stressing about calculation. They're more concentrating on the maths we're being learned. At the moment, a lot of kids who are stressing on, oh, can I do that calculation?
So it's still a basic math.
Yeah, it's still like it's a little bit of numeracy, and it's just that little bit of practice. Even if kids were just doing some number facts on the side for themselves, I think it would make it just improve their mathematics knowing.
And a little bit of confidence.
Confidence is a biggie. Yeah. I love confidence. Yeah. That's what there's that in my point when I'll probably even do that question now. Essentially, I'm a believer that every kid can succeed. Many years ago, about 20 years ago, I read a book by John Mighton, who's a very successful Canadian mathematician. Yep. And he runs programs in schools to change kids who are doing basically the worst in the school and making them the best. And a lot of it's about confidence. Yes. And building their confidence and their ability. And not being negative about the mathematics as it is. A lot of kids have negative thoughts about mathematics.
This just builds up over time.
And it comes from everywhere. People almost expect you to not like mathematics. And if you like mathematics, you're different. And I make fun of myself because I like mathematics. Because as I said, people expect me to be not to be that, but it's their confidence that's important. And I know I spend a lot of time trying to build their confidence in class and be positive about it. I nerd out in the sense that I try and
it's a nice way of putting it.
I proudly am as big a nerd as I possibly can be in class. And me loving it and enjoying it, I'm trying to make it normal for them.
So not make it too distant. Let's say that there are mistakes that can be made and you backtrack it.
The mistakes you make are mistakes. And you live with, and you go and use them. That's, I've got all those sort of thoughts there as well.
So, math homework.
We got to share this one.
What's it all about? Why is it necessary, basically?
Why is it necessary? Okay. I apologize for what I'm about to do. You guys are going to get a little bit of a share again. Because I can't help it. Someone helped me a couple of years ago, and I went to a.
Because it is a bit of a shock to the kids.
Oh, it's a
coming
big
into high
shock
school,
to their
you know,
system.
you know.
I'm not gonna directly answer your question first, Mr. Ford. I
Oh,
apologise.
That's all right.
Um,
That's all right. I'm used to that.
my philosophy on homework is based around how we remember things. The essence of it is we remember everything that we've ever seen, ever said, ever done is in our head somewhere.
Okay.
We
Not
just can't find
necessarily
it.
accessible, but
We just can't get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like every memory you've had from the moment you started having memories till now
Yeah.
are there.
Mm.
We just don't access them enough.
Mhm.
And the memories you access are the ones you remember.
Yeah.
The ones you don't are the ones you forget. So the things you talk about all the time.
The basically you're saying homework is all about setting up the access.
Yeah. And it's getting the memory, right?
Right on.
And
I get
so
it.
forgetting happens for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And there are these things called forgetting curves.
Yep.
And it's a rough idea of what things look like.
So the amount of time after they've had an
Yeah.
experience, whatever.
So I teach something in a class.
Yep.
Roughly an hour later, about only 30% of it's going to be retained.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm.
And by the time you get down to a month, you're down to around 10% of whatever we learn if you never touch it again.
So this is the theory of regular
Visits, yeah.
Regular visiting. Yeah.
So ideally, within that hour, students are going to do some work.
Yep.
They're going to do some questions. They're going to interact with a bit of mathematics.
Yep.
All right. That night, into that next day, the homework they do is coming back into it again. So at the end of the lesson, they're pretty much back to 100. But if we let it go, by the next day, we're down to like 50. Overnight, you go back and interact with it again.
No, that's interesting.
The homework is your interaction with the maths you've just learned again, or whatever you've just learned.
Yeah.
And it starts to not wane off as much. And you'll notice that in the curves, they're not dropping anywhere near as fast, and things are being maintained a lot higher.
Try and keep you out of the sun. Mr.
That's
Smith,
all right.
sorry.
I don't get a suntan.
The sun's belting in here through our windows. We need blinds.
About an hour's time, or half an hour's time to be gone.
Yeah.
And then I know with me at the moment, on most of the classes, we're trying to do little bits of homework each day, each week as well. So I set an education perfect task.
Yeah.
And that's about students coming back and touching concepts each from the week and from previous weeks.
Yep.
And it's just lifting that memory and retention and the ability to go and access it. So that's why I go and say to all these kids, you're going to get some homework every night from me.
Yeah. So basically, you really do need to be revisiting on a frequent basis.
Yeah. And I find, look, to me, that's mathematics at times. I've been obviously a maths teacher for a while. But if I hadn't have done this sort of approach as a student, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Okay.
I had to revisit things. I confess, I was lucky as a high school student in the year 8, 9, 10.
Yep.
I understood the stuff and didn't have to do as much revision or anything like that. I always did my homework. And I was always doing the work that was set. And I've obviously engaged regularly with it. But
that's what has to happen.
That's it. It's about touching it regularly.
That's a learning process.
It's not much different in the end to what we do with elite sportsmen or playing sport. Lots of students play sport or they play music. They have to practice what that skill is to get it right. Oh no, it's a good look, isn't it?
So obviously you do have to revisit. We use Education Perfect for the homework, which is really quite accessible.
Bit of extra homework anyway.
When a parent often wants to know, well, when do I need to have tutoring? And when is it desirable?
Okay, I've always had a philosophy that tutoring never hurts anyone anyway. So even I have actually done tutoring in the past, where I've helped kids individually and outside of schools, not actually students I've taught or anything from other schools. And generally I've done it on various levels there, and I think that's where tutoring comes in. Tutoring works for those who are trying to just pick up bits and pieces that are missed. And it also works for those students who are trying to push themselves from being like a B to an A. So it works on various levels. Lots of kids, I would say at any point in time whether you think you need a little bit of help, tutoring works. And And that could be as simple as, well, I think the next thing there is popping in Monday afternoons and sitting in the library with me at the moment.
Yep.
For that 45 minutes.
Yep.
Or put that 50 minutes or whatever, 55 minutes.
On Monday afternoon.
On a Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
But there are other times, and I mean, you'll find over the years of what I've happily done for many kids, and I happily do it still. You come and have a chat to me at some stage, and I'll have a chat with the extra if you want a little bit of extra help.
Because it's that filling in the gaps sometimes, because the kids
Yeah.
come from, primary school,
Yeah.
no one's fault, but they've
No.
missed out on
They've
something.
just missed out little bits and pieces,
Yeah.
and it's the memory curve.
Yeah.
You've not reconnected with it.
Yeah.
There's lots of amazing mathematics I knew 30 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was at university, I haven't touched it in 30 years,
No.
and it's not there anymore.
No.
So yeah.
The kids can improve.
Oh,
Mm.
immensely. I mean,
Yeah.
the amazing thing sometimes you see is students who come into your class,
Yeah.
lacking confidence in themselves, but also, and they put the effort into it.
Yeah.
Many a student, I mean, I think I've told you this story. There's multiple students I've seen over the years walk into a Maths C class with me, or a
Yeah.
specialist maths class,
Yeah.
who, when they've walked in, obviously don't have the actual algebra skills to succeed.
Yep.
But they work really hard.
91% perspiration. as they
Yeah,
say.
and that's right.
Yeah, right.
And they put the effort in,
Yeah.
and they walk out with some of the best results.
Yeah.
Because they've had to work to get it.
Good work, David.
Yeah, the work habit has got them. That work ethic sometimes gets
Yeah.
you further
That's really good.
than the talented one.
No, that's a good message, and it actually is how it plays out. Why don't we pause for a second and ask Mrs. Rappler? Mrs. Rappler, our AP mission, is with us this morning. Thank you for monitoring things on the sidelines.
I'll stop the share too.
She's trying to block the sun for us, which is very nice of her. Thank you, Mrs. Rappler.
Cool.
Anything on the chat there in regard to questions?
No, there's
that's
not
all right.
yet. I've asked if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you. Because we got lots of topics we want to cover. Glenn, I just moving on a little bit.
I think I've already talked about this one.
Well,
That's
if,
all right.
obviously,
We'll
for
keep
some
going for
kids,
it.
maths is sheer hard work.
Yeah.
You have an attitude there in class in regard to trying to make it enjoyable and lessen it out a bit, really.
But I'm silly.
Yeah.
I'm a crazy guy in class.
But that helps sometimes.
That's what helps.
Yeah, that helps.
But as I said, I really believe that kids want to be there. The first, I tell silly stories, or not silly stories. I tell stories about life. I tell stories linked to the mathematics that they don't expect to hear.
Yep.
I have to admit I'm a bit of a mathematical historian. I love the history of mathematics and the stories and the quirky stories that go with it.
Yep.
And the reasons why they exist.
He gave me an excellent book to read over the Christmas period. I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah. That was Mathematician's Lament.
Mathematician's
Lament,
Lament. Yeah,
yeah.
that was actually really, really good. So just moving on from there, Glenn, I mean, one of the things I noticed in math, which is really interesting for some teachers, how they handle wrong answers.
Yeah.
All right. And wrong answers are a learning opportunity.
Oh, they're a huge, but it depends on the wrong answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Some wrong answers are just us making small, silly mistakes. I do it all the time. And me and the 7 times table, I'll happily make errors there occasionally. And I've done many errors, and I've done errors where I just haven't seen things sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're a learning thing that you go, oh, okay, I can live with that. That's not the worst thing in the world. And it's not probably spending time practicing that isn't going to change anything.
And the other thing is that genuine problem solving, you really haven't got the answer worked out before you go in.
No. And
Yeah,
you find your way there.
Yes.
You feel
So
your way there.
they've got to see that.
Yeah. And that's these guys, not students, I said guys, I apologize.
Yeah.
The students haven't really delved into problem solving up until this point in time.
Yep.
They've had problems to solve.
Yes. Okay.
But they haven't really gone into the full problem solving model which is a thought process in terms of the new syllabus that's coming in next year.
Yeah.
And there has been problem solving based in this syllabus.
Yeah.
It's there pretty much all the way through, but the emphasis is going to get bigger.
Yep.
But I would think the error in the end that's probably the biggest killer is those not the killer, sorry, killer's not the right word. The biggest opportunity to learn from is when you have that little conceptual error.
Yeah.
But that's also your chance to go, hey, what have I done wrong here?
And good math.
Where can I get it better?
Good math teaching never wastes an error.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
And I make plenty of errors.
Yes. Yeah, as you say, but resolving them is pretty gives kids some confidence and actually shows them the process.
Strangely enough, it's going to sound horrible. I apologize, parents. I like doing a question cold in front of the class.
Well,
as in not having done it before.
Yeah.
And it's something, it's a real learning process.
Yep.
Because they get to see me thinking and solving a problem. And I talk them through how I think about the problem.
Yep.
Because that's what's important.
Tends to come easier to more experienced teachers.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, no, see,
You know.
that's the confidence thing again, though.
Yes, it is.
Because if you're confident in what you're going to do,
Yeah.
and it's fun going down the wrong track, and
Yes.
then getting going, well, hold
That was a dry gully.
yeah. But then them realizing over time that yes, it's all right to go down the wrong track.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
But
come back.
important part of kids' experience math in the classroom, basically. Yeah. So let's talk about this new syllabus. Now, from the beginning of 2023, which is next year, although
Yep.
we're
starting to do some of it now.
We're starting earlier. So I guess for parents, benefit, what is a syllabus, and,
Look,
and what is changing? I
Okay.
suppose?
In the end, syllabus simply, really on its simplest level, is the bit of paper that says what we're going to do.
Yep.
You guys got to teach that so that everyone's pretty much teaching the same thing.
Yep.
And that's the easy, whatever subject it is, there's always going to be a bit of paper saying, teach this. Right? It probably gets a little bit, it's not tight or anything, but the syllabus just says these are the things you've got to cover in each year level. And that's as simple as that.
And the good thing, I suppose, both for Australian education generally, is that it's always being considered. You do rewrites of a syllabus.
Well, they're rewriting them all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't even know the guess. I don't even know the length of this one, but I think this is the 9th, if memory serves me right, the 9th. Ninth Australian curriculum, and the Australian curriculum has probably been around
version 9.
Version 9, and that's only been around maybe 15 years.
Yeah, okay.
So it's every 2 or 3 years they've revised this slightly.
Which is important.
Yes.
Yeah, the emphasis, as you say, is changing.
Yeah.
And some of the processes are changing.
It's interesting that how the emphasis has changed and how it's going. Well, look, the emphasis, the content isn't changing at all. It's still the same math.
Yep.
It's still roughly the same place.
Yep.
They have 6 strands now instead of 3.
Yep.
But it's the
form broken them up.
they've just hardened them. like the statistics and probability one has become statistics of one and probability is the other. Whoa,
major change.
big change.
Okay.
There's a little bit more rigor involved.
What do they
but
mean?
the rigor being it's got a little bit tougher in a couple of spots.
Yeah, sure.
But it's all because they've pushed a couple of content ideas slightly forward.
Okay.
The simplest example is like in year 7, currently they're not expected to solve little linear equations. Like the classic, like 3 plus some number equals, I don't know, 15.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily expected to solve that as an algebraic linear equation.
Yep.
But in the new one, they are.
Okay. Yeah.
Because previously it was a year 8 concept.
Yep.
But there's not many of those. There's only a handful of those throughout the entire syllabus.
Yeah.
And then they've got a bit more problem solving. And I think some of the problem solving stuff is linked back, or the reason for it is linked back to what happens in 11 and 12.
Okay.
It's more of a preparation for 11 and 12.
So they're looking forward to the senior and saying these are the things we need.
In 11 and 12, especially in year 12, roughly 20% of your mark comes from one problem solving activity. Yeah. And you've got to be able to do it well.
Yes.
To get that 20% of the mark pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's that practice then building up to that over the previous 4 years, 4 or 5 years, that is what they're trying to emphasize now as well.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yes, that's right. Because that's the problems that we've had previously with the current year syllabus in year 11 and 12.
Yeah.
Kids haven't done that up until now, and they get dropped in cold in year 11. Hey, do this.
And that's too hard.
And that's too hard.
Too much of a gap.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of good work done in the upper primary, obviously, in regard to some topics which they come into here in high school.
The upper look, to be honest, kids come into primary. Look, my kids I've taught this year, and this is my first time teaching year 7, 8 again for a long time.
Yeah.
It's amazing some of the knowledge they had. And they walk in and they remember things.
Yes.
We were doing some geometry the other day, and their memory of their geometry is quite good.
Yeah,
it's been really, really good.
They remember the old right angle symbol and
all
180 degrees.
The stuff they've learned is good.
Yeah, I noticed that. So they're actually coming well prepared.
Yeah,
but a lot of work's got to be done. Maths and numeracy. Now, they're not necessarily synonymous, but they have a lot in common.
Yes, they do. Yeah, people get upset when I talk about the fact that at some stage when you start, everyone thinks mathematics is numeracy. Yeah.
And for a parent, obviously looking at that, they probably largely think the same.
Yeah. But you see, I'm a nerd, as I've said, and I am very much a maths nerd. Yep. Not necessarily a numeracy nerd. And yes, numeracy is just realistically your concept of number, and your ability to use it in
Everyday situations.
Yeah. And that's really important for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. Like we've had the interest rate changes recently.
Yep.
And you go on the news and they talk about something going up 70 basis points.
Yep.
I think it's 50 basis points it's been going up recently.
Yeah.
And
75 is the next one. Apparently, I don't want to panic.
I don't want to panic. No, sorry. I've got 5 or 6 years left on my loan.
Yeah, that's right.
But the basis points, understand that's a little bit of financial literacy that everyone needs.
Yeah.
And the understand and be able to work out the actual do your calculations on how much your repayments are going to be.
So people can be quite numerate without a large exposure to math.
No, that's right.
They pick it up intuitively almost,
There's lots of bits of numeracy out there that are really important. And then there's lots of really nice pieces of mathematics that are important. And you don't know where it's going to pop up. My father, boilermaker, for half of his working life, was the best person with Pythagoras. Because he had to be every day of his life, multiple times.
That's right.
Because he had to be able to square things up. And he could square numbers in his head. And he was doing an imperial measurement as well. And it was really interesting to watch him do things like that. But use it. And so there's lots of little cases in the world where you use some sort of numeracy. And then when it comes to the mathematics, and this is where you always get the question, where am I going to use that? It's a great question for a maths teacher.
It's a fair one too.
And I'm very blunt and honest with kids now. I suppose getting older, I've become blunter and honester. I don't lie to them, but some kids aren't going to need algebra. Some kids aren't going to need calculus. There are bits and pieces that kids aren't going to need. But when you're looking at year 7, 8, 9, 10, it's about you don't know as a student sitting in your room in year 7 what you're going to need in 4 years' time, or in 6. So everyone needs to be exposed to the small little bits and pieces of mathematics, and that's why there's such a variety of concepts floating around in the math syllabus. Because some people may need that. Some people may, and it's about
too early for choice.
You don't want to be choosing now and cutting yourself out of.
Going off on a tangent a little bit there, in regard, has numeracy in our current generations coming through been a bit affected by the emphasis on the virtual as opposed to the physical, practical, like as in money, physical money, less handling of those aspects, because that's one of the debates at the moment in regard to going completely virtual in things like tuck shops and in schools. Are we not using the everyday examples?
Well, actually, to be honest, you do know. I mean, mum and dads would notice this too. You would notice that. I hate to say this, that people working at checkouts definitely can't give you the right change if they don't have the machine working.
That's right.
And they don't like me giving them the extra 15 cents to make it
the dollar.
To make it the dollar change, right, as opposed to 85 cents. But there is little bits of numeracy, because the machine tells you to do so. And look, I think there is a place for the technology in this world. There's a big place. We've got no chance. You're not turning it around. I mean, but I think it does get affected. I think, and which is what I think is interesting with the new senior syllabus, especially in 2 of the subjects where you have to do assessment items without a calculator.
And they keep the non-calculator aspect.
And that's why we've taken an approach
having a non-calculator in our tests.
And I know a lot of schools around the state have been doing a lot of. Strangely enough, I do have friends who are maths odds around the state.
And they're doing the same.
and I've taken that inspiration from their stuff. And there's some of these are really big schools down south. I know it's getting close to the time.
No, that's right.
I went, well, we got to do that. You've got to make, and I think it also then puts that emphasis on that numeracy skill again. To actually get through.
And I've got to get the message parents, particularly with primary school age kids, is look for those opportunities to improve numeracy.
It's just encouraging. Take a chance. I mean, I would think the only reason I was ever good with tables, and pretty sure you're the same. We forced yourselves to learn them, and they stuck in here for some reason.
That they did.
And they never got anywhere.
Then just on these last couple of areas, modern day math class, you've got resources galore.
Very different modern day math.
Online, math online.
Look, there's lots and lots of places.
Advantage, disadvantage.
Look, I love Education Perfect. because of the fact that you can go on, it will gives everyone, for me as a teacher, it's great, 'cause I can generate a dozen questions, 15 questions for kids to go and do each week.
Yep.
That are revision and practice and just that.
Yep.
And I love the feedback it gives me, and I
Yep.
love the feedback it gives the kids.
Yep.
And I love the fact that it then gives kids, it sort of like pulls up and says, oh, you struggle with this area.
Yeah.
Go and do these couple of
Gives them
questions.
the diagnostics
Yeah,
time.
literally
yeah,
tells
yeah,
them, go and do this extra
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But on the other side of that is teachers are pretty handy.
Yeah, teacher
Yeah.
needs,
The
teacher
one-
needs to be there.
No, it's just handy to talk to a teacher about.
Yeah,
If there's a problem, sometimes it's better to talk to.
Yeah.
But I also think hearing I personally like listening to Eddie Wood.
Oh, he's
Just for interest sake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he's
Um,
great.
Occasionally, and I know I put Eddie Wu into my Google Classroom occasionally.
Yeah. Mm.
When there is something there that is, just because I think it's just a different voice explaining
Yeah.
the same thing.
And certainly his explanations are
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons actually I don't necessarily want to teach the same 24 kids for 2 or 3 years
Yes, yeah,
in mathematics. I want them to hear someone else's voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Explaining things.
yeah, very good.
Mm.
And then I know we're out of time, but mate, what do you enjoy most about math? Well, to sign off, what do you enjoy most about math teaching?
Maths teaching?
Yeah, what do you enjoy most?
I love that moment.
Mm.
Absolutely love that moment.
Mm.
When someone just gets an idea
Mhm.
that they've been struggling with.
It's a bit of a breakthrough.
Yeah, that moment when someone lights up.
And it's a struggle getting there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's but that moment, that light bulb moment, that look in someone's eyes,
Mm.
that sheer you see, it's me experiencing what I experienced.
Yeah.
There are times I know when I've struggled with thoughts and processes and questions.
Yeah.
And there's a quote somewhere basically basically all about accepting the challenge.
Yeah.
You know, and eventually becoming victorious over the problem. And that sheer joy of doing that is pretty good.
It is.
And I love watching that happen in kids
That's
too.
very good. It is interesting when you think between grade 2 and grade 12, that's 10 years, a decade,
Mm.
and a decade of us previously, the learning that occurs with kids in mathematics and that when that decade, 10 years is
Mm.
enormous.
And the interesting thing is kids will tell you, oh yeah, this is so hard now. Because it is, it's at the edge of their
They're
learning.
always at the edge. That's
It's
right.
always at the edge of their learning.
Yeah.
And they look back in a year or two's time and go, oh, can we do that? That was easy.
Mm.
No?
Phenomenal what they learn.
Yeah, it's amazing watching kids learn.
And it's good that, the teachers get the satisfaction of seeing them developing.
I wouldn't be doing the job I was doing if I didn't enjoy standing in a room.
And that's fair enough. And unfortunately, we've got to go and do our job.
Hey, we've got to do our job.
So look, thanks very much for
Sorry if I bored you this
for
morning.
tuning in. But
Sorry if we have to nerd out.
it's great to talk to a person who's passionate about what they do, and this is such a vital area for kids. There are some changes coming up, but as Glenn said, they're measured. And
They're minor.
They're minor in regard to it's still a case of good teaching and learning, and the students enjoying the challenge in the math club.
Yeah, having fun.
Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you at our next parent forum in a few weeks' time. And I think we're going on to the equally important topic of English.